Go.
The big on-air symbol at the top.
It's intimidating.
Only I can prevent forest fires? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like you're trying to tell me something, and I'm just not entirely.
Sub sex live.
Okay. All right. Welcome to Trauma Talk with Brandon, Miranda, and Sarah, who is invisible because she doesn't want people to see her eating food. We'll just go right into it. So today's Trauma Talk is going to be entirely about microaggressions. And so microaggressions come in the form of, well, Miranda, would you define a microaggression for me, please?
Sure. So, I'll define it by kind of comparing it to macroaggressions. So, macroaggressions would be something like being called slurs, being physically assaulted, like those sorts of things are macroaggressions. Obviously, they're bad. Microaggressions tend to be things that are more like thoughtless comments. So there may or may not be intent to cause pain, but it's those little things that kind of like eat away at you and make you know that like the person isn't really seeing you for who you are.
Right. So going into that capacity, each time we experience a microaggression, being misgendered, the assumption about someone's real gender, a comment about somebody that looks gay or not gay, and then making that out to a queer person who to objects is just dismissed as oversensitive or making everything about identity, which is painful. That injury lacks the dramatic visibility of overt violence. Yet our nervous systems react and register each slight like a paper cut. You might as well just be doing paper cuts between my fingers because that's how much it irritates me. That's how much it hurts. The De Rerum Natura, Lucretius said, the drops of rain make a hole in the stone, not by violence, but just by the oft of falling. And that's the case. Microaggressions can feel, over time, death by 1,000 cuts. And so one of the things that I do is it goes in the book. Every time it happens, I track those patterns when they happen, and making visible what that isolation renders invisible. But sharing those patterns with people in the community that I care about and that I love. From my perspective, the aggressions, microaggressions, and microaggressions that I experienced in Vegas were the same way. There was a rodeo conference that was happening on top of AWS reInvent, and people in their cowboy hats and their big, cowboy boots or whatever, they'd look at me a certain way, and that look is by definition classic microaggression. Now, of course.
Yeah, and something that when we're talking about like looks that we get, you kind of develop a skill for knowing whether a look is like a curious look, like, oh, I think I've clocked you. Like that's not
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
a big
I
deal.
agree.
But if it's like, oh, one of those, that's a different kind of look.
Yeah, that's a very different look. That's one of the reasons why we create spaces where queer people um, can talk about these experiences, and then so that the general populace would understand how it's difficult for us. Um, I mean, Brandon, you've experienced that before, right?
I have a little bit. It was I think it was last year. I went to a nail salon with a friend of mine, and I don't get manicures or anything very often. For one thing, they're expensive, and I at that time, I could splurge a little bit, but um, I don't know if it was my first time. It might have been my first time getting a manicure. I can't remember, but I was sitting there in the kind of lobby area, I guess, and picking out the type of whatever the color, looking at the colors and things like that. And also in the waiting area was this older man who I believe was waiting for his wife. I'm assuming it was his wife, an older woman, getting her nails done or whatever. And he was sitting there waiting and wearing I believe it was a veteran's cap or something like that. And I might have been like excited or something, kind of, just, I wasn't being like real loud or flamboyant or anything, but I was like, oh, this is, I was just kind of having fun with picking out what I was going to get or whatever. And he, he had his arms crossed, and he was looking over at me and then turned his head and just, shook his head. And that was the look like Miranda was talking about. You kind of get skilled at determining what kind of look a person is giving you or whatever. And I know it's assuming, but it's pretty clear to me what that look was about, and that shake of the head and avoiding after he looked at me as I was over there and then looking away and shaking his head. I'm pretty sure what that meant, So yeah, I would. That's the most recent one I can think about. I think of, and of course he didn't say anything, and I wasn't. I don't think I was really hurt by it, and yet it sticks in my mind. I see very clearly that. I remember very clearly that circumstance and the way he looked and everything.
Yeah,
And
even
it's
if you
just
don't feel the pain right then, like it can still stick with you.
right. And it's just so, I don't know. It's just so odd that it's stuck with me so much because he was not somebody I knew. I don't care. I mean, I think I don't care, at least consciously. I don't care what he thinks, and yet there must be something because it sticks in my mind. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of almost, I guess, sad that strangers can't just go about their day and let other people do what they want and without being judgmental or annoyed by it. I wasn't bothering him at all. I wasn't, in his face or anything like that. And
Well, that's a perfect segue into the next point in the discussion. But before I do that, Sarah, have you experienced microaggressions before?
I mean, yes, but not in that context. Um, but the thing that came to mind was more along the lines of my sister and I will go out places and we'll have my nephew with us, and the number of times that we get looks like as if we're a couple, we always have. And it kind of got put into sharp focus this weekend because it didn't happen at the festival we were at, which was kind of nice. And it didn't really occur to me how much it specifically bothered my sister, but amused me before, until now that it didn't happen and there was just so much visibility. Just kind of eye-opening a bit.
Well, there's an issue with this, and going into what Brandon was saying, and I'll turn this back to Miranda. Every time we experience a microaggressive act, we are faced with a relative impossible choice. Do we speak up and be labeled as difficult, which is in and of itself another microaggression? Or do we just stay quiet and internalize that feeling, that emotion? To Sarah's point, someone who perceives, or even a perceived lesbian couple, must decide whether to correct the waiter who assumes that they're sisters when they're not because they're a couple, or correct the waiter that they're sisters and not a couple because they make that assumption. As a trans woman, you calculate whether correcting pronouns at the time they happen, is it worth it or is it not worth it? And that cognitive effect, those, I hate to use the term, but micro decisions, it builds up over time. It causes an individual like myself to emotional monitor. Emotional monitoring is something that people, when a person has abuse history, emotional monitoring is something that an abuse history person does. That's the person that asks, am I trans enough? Am I queer enough? Do you still love me? Do you care about me? You're asking those questions because you fear that that emotional state has changed. That's on one side of the reactionary spectrum versus the other side of the revolutionary spectrum, which is like, again, do I correct somebody for improper pronoun usage? Is it worth it for me to do it? You sort of have to develop correction protocols. Things that you say to a straight person versus things you would say to another trans person versus things you would say to a fellow queer person. Scripts and signals and shared responsibility systems, but practicing selective engagement becomes necessary. You identify with spaces that warrant energy for correction and which simply survive, or in which you would just choose to simply survive. Aristotle, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but it is itself just a habit. And how we deal with those things behaves in the same way. Miranda?
Yeah, those little situations and like policing your own reaction to it is something that like it feels like there's no right answer sometimes, because if you correct the person who's misgendering you, then are they going to escalate the situation into like, oh, you're a hysterical tranny, or like Or are they going to take the correction and try to improve? Are they going to listen to the correction and then like double down on doing the wrong thing? And like you have to think about like every time it happens, you have to think about your relationship to that person. So like correcting strangers, most of the time not worth the trouble. But when it's your friends and your family, then like you have to speak up at some point, or they're not going to change. And it kind of relates to like another thing I put in my notes of people who consider themselves allies, but when there's a situation where you're in mixed company with the ally and people who are more hostile, sometimes the ally will like do things to protect the feelings of the hostile party and not me, you know. And so it's like, oh, so like my personhood is can be sacrificed in this situation so that you don't have to be comfortable. I have to take all the discomfort on myself, and I have to put on a smile so that it doesn't mess up your social relationship with this hostile person.
Brandon?
Yeah, I think there are a couple other things to think about too. Like if you do address, like with the guy, it was just a look, you know, he looked away and shook his head or whatever. I could say something like, "Do you have a problem?" or something, you know, where I could, even though he didn't address me or anything, and maybe he didn't even intend for me to see the look and the shake of the head. So am I starting something by, if I say something, you know, and also thinking about, well, kind of like Miranda said about what your relationship is, if it's a stranger, and also if you think you'll ever see that person again. You know, if you're, I was in a nail salon in a different town, and I will very likely never see that person again. And so what does it matter if I address him or whatever? And you're also, if you do address the person, you're acknowledging that they have done this, that they are being offensive or aggressive or whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes they're like baiting you for that reaction.
Right. You could choose either to ignore. You could pretend, oh, maybe I misheard them. Maybe I didn't hear the misgendering, or I missed the look or whatever. But if you say something, you're acknowledging. You're kind of giving them some power by acknowledging that they have done this and that it has bothered you, because if you're saying something to them, it has bothered you enough that you're going to speak up. So that's also something to weigh out. Do you want to give that to them in a way, you know? Or there's also looking at it as they should stop doing, they can't just get away with it all the time. I don't know, it's a really hard decision to make, I think, and it's probably a case by case basis. Basically, I experienced another time earlier this summer. I was at the beach in Maine, and I was wearing a very short spandex material shorts, swimsuit kind of thing, and I got a couple looks from people like, you shouldn't be wearing that, or obviously he's gay if he's wearing something like that. Straight men don't wear that, but and those kind of looks bothered me a little bit, I guess. Like, I wasn't being like, it wasn't a bikini or anything. I wasn't showing off anything I wasn't supposed to show off or anything like that. But there were cute little shorts actually. And Robin Wilding, she was like, I loved them. I thought they were cute, and she was with me on the beach. She didn't notice any looks or anything, and she wouldn't, I don't think. I mean, that's not something she's kind of trained herself to look for. I wouldn't expect her to have noticed, but I just pick up on those kind of things. I'm always like people watching and kind of analyzing the room or the whatever the area. But anyway, I'm not sure. I don't remember where I was going with all that, but
well, the people watching, that goes back to emotional monitoring. You watch the reactions of people in the room. And the reason that you do that is so that you can establish an emotional baseline.
And self-protection.
And
like queer people have to have more situational awareness than a lot of us.
Yeah. The reason for that. Well, Sarah, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I still feel like my microaggression experience isn't on the same topic, really.
Well, but you're still a baby. You're still baby butching. You're still baby butching. It could still happen. Well, I wanted just to speak to Brandon's point, was the gaslighting of accumulation, because that's the next thing that happens. So when one person approaches me and says, "Are you a man or a woman?" The perpetrator of that act rarely ever witnesses the 100 that preceded that one. In their mind, they only see it as an innocent. I don't understand. It's an innocent question, or it's a harmless assumption. When a person is bewildered by my gender, and they don't understand my disproportionate reaction to their harmless question. A bisexual person who snaps at yet another, so you're basically just straight now. Comment.
Yeah, being trans is fun.
Yeah, bi erasure is, oh no, bi erasure is bullshit. No, it isn't. We're not going to do that. But you make that comment, and it appears unreasonable to the commenter who doesn't see the 50 identical comments that preceded it that month, or whatever. That temporal isolation becomes a form of gaslighting that denies the reality of that cumulative harm outwardly over time. So you practice articulating that context when it's safe to do so. Okay, this is the 14th time this month I've had to answer that question. And this is why I'm bothered by the fact that you're asking it. You're asking this question. I want you to understand how many times a month I answer that question. Your question could be the straw that broke the camel's back, and I chose to react to it. Brandon?
Well, the other part is that it shouldn't matter how many times you've been asked that before. That why is that person asking that in the first place?
Right.
I understand that, like, maybe the reaction is based on so many times before, but just the one time, why would someone just come up and ask if you're a man or a woman what they're you could replace that question with what genitalia do you have, or something like that. It's like, why would anybody go up to someone and ask just that kind of question?
Yeah, well, they ask about that too, because they'll be
Right.
like, they'll clock me as a trans woman and then just think, okay, I can ask her if she's had the surgery. Or, like, why do you care?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
we are not intimate partners, so you don't need to know that information.
Yeah. Like, who do you have sex with? Like, not you. I mean, that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Not you.
From a gay perspective, I mean, that's like, are you the man or the woman in the relationship?
Right. Yes.
I hate that fucking question.
Yes.
I hate that fucking question. But I mean, the terrible thing about our time is precisely the ease with which theories can be put into practice. The more perfect, the more idealistic the theories, the more dreadful that realization becomes. Because, yeah, I mean, most powerfully, refuse the demand to treat each incident that happens to you as a novel. Instead, just name it for what it is and move on. But that doesn't make dealing with that accumulation any worse. It really doesn't. And over time, yeah, those things become a form of gaslighting. I mean, Sarah?
I was going to say that there's more compassionate ways to ask for clarity, like asking for pronouns. I mean, my mom and I went to get our haircut this weekend, and there was one of the stylists that I'm assuming my mother asked about pronouns because she's been being educated by me and my child. So she was referring to the stylist as she. So I'm making a lot of assumptions by assuming that she asked for for clarification. But if you want to be able to address somebody properly, and that's the reason for asking the question, that's the most compassionate way you can go about that. And it's like, there people just don't understand that, or they're intentionally choosing to not be compassionate.
Yeah, and what I tell people is the best way to ask for someone else's pronouns is to give them yours. So,
Yeah.
like, even if you are a cisgender person, saying, hi, my name is whatever, my pronouns are she, her, then, like, that establishes that, like, it's okay to respond with your pronouns.
Absolutely.
That happens quite a bit online too, because there are a lot of people, Substack, Medium, whatever, that they've chosen a name, and it's maybe kind of a vague or innocuous kind of name. It's like you can't determine their gender or their pronouns just by their name. Like, there was one I was just talked to yesterday, and I'd seen her in a lot of the chats and everything, and for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason I was assuming she was a female, but that was just an assumption, really, because by the name I wouldn't have been able to tell that. maybe just by the kinds of interactions or whatever. So I asked, we talked in a DM in the chats, and I just asked because I was like, I've been assuming this, but that's not necessarily true. So I just wanted to ask, and she said, well, yes, you're right. I am a woman. I'm blah 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 blah. So, but yeah, I think that you have to do that a lot online because you may not see the person, you may not know just by the name or their description. Some people don't have it in their description, because I did go to her profile and there was nothing in the profile to identify who she was or what her pronouns were or anything like that. So, you either assume or you ask.
Well, and by doing that, or by experiencing that, that inspires the erosion of self-trust. Because if they happen enough over time, after the 1,000th time that I've been asked the question about my gender, doubt starts to creep in. You can't stop it. We're all human beings. And so then I ask myself, am I overreacting? Am I seeing harm where none exists? I mean, I got on that elevator in Vegas, and this dude in a cowboy hat and his boots with his wife and his family and two Indian guys. So two guys clearly from India. And on the ride up in the elevator, the cowboy tells the bellhop that's helping him with his luggage, or whatever, I want to get on a floor that doesn't have any faggots, sissies, or Muslim terrorists on it. Now, when you hear that enough, a non-binary person could begin to question whether someone's pronoun slip was truly careless or an honest mistake. A gay guy, Brandon, could wonder if you're being paranoid for sensing condescension in a tone from somebody who is a straight colleague. That erosion of self-trust is really probably the deepest wound. When external invalidation becomes internalized and we become complicit in our own questioning of ourselves, we end up gaslighting ourselves, because of that. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. That's a Nietzsche quote, but it holds true in this case. We have to anchor ourselves in somatic wisdom. The body doesn't lie about threat. When your shoulders tense and your jaw clenches and your breath goes shallow, and you have to pay attention to that physiological reaction, regardless of the external validation. You have to express, that hurts and that's painful, but I have to trust myself. As a trans person, it's a daily task to get in front of a mirror and go, I see Wendy, I see a woman. When I walk out of the house in this dress with my makeup done right, and I'm going to work, which I will do tomorrow, and I get on the transit train to go to work, that I'm okay with myself and that I trust myself. Now, from my perspective, I get on the train, some girl walks by and goes, ma'am, those boots are really cute, and I think they look really good on you. That kind of affirmation is boundlessly, that's like Liquid Schwartz from Spaceballs or whatever. Hell, I can run the Winnebago for a week on that shit. Miranda.
Sorry, it got loud in here for a second. Yeah, so it really can run the Winnebago for a week. So, like, I don't know what I was going to say. Sorry, it's loud. It's loud in here.
Yeah.
I can't get. Yeah, skip me for now.
Right. Brandon, do you trust yourself, Brandon?
Oh, sometimes. Well, one thing I was thinking about when you were talking about that was passive aggressive behaviors, which can sometimes be, I don't know if it's, I don't think it's always the same as microaggression, because microaggression is more intentional. Sometimes passive aggressive, I don't know if it's always intentional. I think maybe it is. I don't know. Are they? They're not the same thing, right? So, like with my family, there's a lot of passive aggressive, a lot of guilt inducing, and a lot of times I don't think there's intentional harm behind, like when my mom or my aunt, my grandma, whenever they would use guilt to try to get you to do something or whatever, I don't think they were intending harm, because that's like, it was just kind of an automatic thing that was passed down to them. But a lot of passive aggressive behavior, I think kind of it should be addressed, though. Like, you tell them, you said this and this is what I felt about it. This, I was hurt by this, and maybe you didn't mean to hurt me, but I wanted to make you aware of it for the future.
Well, I would say that a lot of passive aggressive behavior does fall into the microaggression.
Yeah.
So I have a family member who is very conservative Christian, very religious, and when addressing me or when talking about me to my wife, she's always polite, always uses my correct name and pronouns, but we have kind of like a weird space going on as far as social media interactions. So like Carolyn and I do a lot of hiking. Sometimes one or both of the kids will go with us, and a lot of times I'll post pictures from our hikes. And there have been several times, so I know that this is like not accidental. There have been several times where I've posted a gallery of pictures that are like beautiful scenery, selfie of me, selfie with my wife. Oh, here's a picture of our kid. And this family member will not like the entire post, will like the pictures of our kid, won't like any of my selfies, won't like any of the pictures of my wife and me together. And I know that what's behind that is this theology of not affirming sin. But, it's very painful, because it's like, what you're saying is that, like, you can treat me differently because of who I am, and then wrap yourself in like holiness because of it. So it's very passive aggressive, and it's very much an aggression.
Yeah, it sounds very intentional.
So passive aggressive behavior is classically microaggressive. If you sigh at if a person sighs at the crucial time, eye rolling, silence when there should be a comment. Um, and the larger problem that I have with that is it creates this stolen capacity for just being ordinary. You know, straight cisgender people experience daily life as a neutral backdrop for whatever their chosen dramas, are. Queer people are, as a queer person, I'm under a constant barrage of microaggression, um, just to lose access to something completely unremarkable. Every coffee shop becomes an assessment. I walk into a coffee shop. Who's going to be friendly versus who isn't? Um, every family gathering is a performance of damage control. How much am I going to put up with from family members when I get together with them? You know, um, that accumulation that doesn't just hurt. It colonizes a collective consciousness, um, making it impossible to inhabit the taken for granted ease that's just unmarked privilege of conformity. The real voyage of discovery consists not seeking new landscapes, but in just having a different set of eyes. So that causes us to organize patterns of just ordinary everyday life, routines, rituals, spaces where you feel safe. Um, it's so normalized that it becomes boring. But that's the thing. There's joy in that boring. I go to this bar at night. Everybody in that bar is queer as fuck. I get a shot of bourbon. I sit down and I drink it. And I know that whatever happens through the course of that night, that everybody else in that bar is going to be okay with whatever comes out of my mouth or whatever I say. Or, you practice deliberately making life smaller sometimes. The joy of, an unremarkable grocery run where I get an affirming statement, or an ordinary Tuesday evening where I'm sitting in front of my terminal playing card games, getting my ass beat by people much smarter at those games than I am. But those moments of just recovered banality and ordinary existence are radical acts of reclamation that I take for myself because of all the shit that I deal with when I go out there. I mean, you feel that way, don't you, Miranda?
Yeah, like it's talking about the grocery run is so interesting because it's like there have been enough bad grocery runs that just an uneventful one is such a relief. And like we will plan to go run our errands at like non-peak times to try to make it where it's safer, it's more comfortable, there aren't as many people to have any sort of conflict with. And like the hassle of having to plan around other people's behavior is that sucks. It's definitely a lack of privilege that, if I go to the store by myself on a Saturday afternoon, then I'm going to have my head on a swivel versus if I go with my wife and at a non-peak time, and like there's fewer people, there's also like her there to support me, and like she notices the looks that I get, so like she can stare people down in a way that I can't because she has that like relative privilege where, like we were talking about earlier, if you overreact to a microaggression and suddenly you're the bad one.
I can see that as like, because if you're with somebody who's not queer, but if you respond to that person, it won't mean as much because a lot of times they will see you as less than them, at least, maybe less than human, but at a different level, a lower level than they are, and so they're not going to pay attention to anything you retaliate with or try to teach them any kind of lesson or make them aware of anything. That they're not likely to listen to that. But I can understand, like, if your wife were to say something or give that look or whatever, that might make them kind of at least have second thoughts.
Oh, my spousal person gives a look.
Yeah.
She does. She did it in Vegas a handful of times.
Sometimes reacting can be just giving them what they want.
Right. Well, yeah, that's what I was saying earlier too. If it could be just acknowledging that is what they want and gives them more power.
That sounded like an evil laugh.
When it comes out of her mouth,
I just want to say that whenever I, like, especially in Vegas, when I see them looking at her and I look at them and they catch me looking at them and they look at her again and they look at me again, I just constantly stare them down. It makes them uncomfortable. They look away and they walk away.
Yeah.
And I will do that.
because she's such a beautiful woman. Because that's the self-worth sentiment. Because I don't feel like, that I've written about this in the queer space stories. The story from the weekend about going to the doctor. I get misgendered or whatever. I just internalize it and take it. She won't, because she knows I won't say anything or I won't do anything about it. And so she'll do it for me instead. The same way that Carolyn does. It helps when there are other people there to sort of stick up for you or whatever. But yeah, it's painful and it's difficult.
And speaking of Carolyn, she faces like a different set of microaggressions because she's my partner.
Right.
So, there are a dozen times that I've heard, but I'm sure that plenty of times I haven't heard people asking her things like, don't you miss having a man in the house? Don't you miss having a husband? Like those kinds of questions. And, from the like just general focus like that to things like, well, you know, there are these like manly chores, feminine chores, or whatever, like in our stupid gender roles in our society. And like, who takes out the trash? Well, hopefully our 17-year-old, but that's different. Like, that people will like pepper her with those sorts of questions, and sometimes they are like at that level, and that's bad enough. And then sometimes they'll go to the questions of, bedroom activities, whatever. It's just, it doesn't matter. It's not your life. Like, my wife likes being married to someone who loves herself versus someone who didn't love him. Like, why
Right.
can't that be?
Yeah, exactly. Why does that have to be? Why can't it just be that way and everybody accept it? We survive by refusing to apologize for that exhaustion, by letting anger be sacred instead of just swallowing it. We give ourselves permission to collapse into trusted arms without explanation, to say, I just can't today, without justifying the weight that others can't see. Survival lives in our family, chosen or otherwise, at 2 a.m. The kind of laughter that makes your ribs tickle when you're laughing. And pronouns land the way that they're supposed to. Nobody's monitoring exits in and out. It's in a group chat. Even a discussion like this. I don't feel threatened by either of you in this discussion. And I feel that I can be honest with the three of you about my opinions. And I happen to love and care about all three of you a whole lot. But I know that in the end, the things that I experience out there, those aren't the things that I'm going to experience here. Even in the people that are watching the session, I've yet to have had anybody in a session that we've done say a T slur or a gay slur or you're fucked up or whatever. That says a lot from a community perspective.
Yeah, like the only things I've had are like somebody coming by the YouTube recording later and, doing their edgelord shit. But like, whatever.
That's the thing.
I know that the community that we have loves me.
We do. I do. I spent a week in your house. By the way, the one on the bottom right is going to spend the weekend in my house. If I didn't care or I felt threatened, that would never happen. Hell, if you felt threatened by me, that would never happen. This is why I say we can't break the band up. We have to keep the band together. Just let's not get to AC/DC's age and keep going on stage even though we're not supposed to.
Oh my gosh. Angus is still doing that schoolboy outfit thing, and it's just such a caricature of himself at this point.
Right. Yeah, but they look like my granddad looked. They were in their 70s. It's horrible. But the thing that I was driving at is we grant ourselves permission to be ordinary. We have to. Gloriously, tediously unremarkable. To grocery shop without performing resilience. That's the key. Hell, I don't give a shit if I ever pass or not. I mean, yeah, I want my boobs to be bigger, and you know, I would like certain parts of my body to match my gender. I work towards those goals, but to be mediocre and tired and petty and boring, to take up space with our full messy humanity instead of trying to compress myself into into I hate to say this, into digestible inspiration porn, because that's what they want.
Yeah.
The radical act isn't perfect resistance to every microaggression. It's just staying soft enough to still feel the pressure. I want to feel the sun on my face just like everybody else. My spouse's hand, the electric moment when another queer person interacts with me and says, "You look really good today. I think you're really cute today. Keep doing that." And that makes knowing and understanding easier. We survive by building small sanctuaries everywhere we go. We carry all of that home within ourselves, and we believe our own nervous systems over everyone else's gaslighting, and then just ignore the rest of it. I think. Brandon.
Well, I want to feel the sun on my face, especially today because it's cold. I don't like the winter.
Is my lens flare like coming through to you?
It's coming through are the sun rays from, she's high up enough in the air, it shouldn't be cloudy there.
Yeah, I appreciate these spaces to feel safe and feel like I relate in some way to other people that I may not find in this general vicinity.
I still want to set you up, but you're gonna have to come.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to come to Atlanta for that to happen.
That's kind of I don't know if I can do a long distance relationship. I don't know. I mean, unless he makes lots of money and wants to have me move in with him.
I know a few people that would probably move for you.
Yeah, project find Brandon a sugar daddy.
I'm not going to find him a sugar daddy. I'm just going to find him a husband, but I'm going to find him a husband that will move to Missouri.
I'm okay with moving, but I don't. Just depends on the area and I'll have to think about my cats.
Well, you would take the pussy with you, right? I mean,
Well,
But they're semi-outdoor cats, aren't they?
well, that's the thing. That's one thing. Like my cat Zoe, she loves the outdoors. She loves being outside. And if I moved to a city area where she had to stay inside, that I don't think I could do that to her. So, yeah. I don't know. But I'm not at that point, so I don't have to think about it right now. Bill DD, I'll think about that tomorrow.
that sounds like a tomorrow problem.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. I'm Scarlett O'Hara right now. Think about that
something
tomorrow.
for future Brandon to figure out.
That's right. Let him worry about it.
My grandfather, my paternal grandfather, is buried 10 yards away from that woman's grave. You know that, right?
What's her name?
Little bit of history here. My father's family are all original Atlanta natives. So I'm going to dead name myself here, but I was the fifth William, of which the first William on my father's side of the family moved to Atlanta in 1863. It was pre-Civil War, but anyway. So, or maybe it was 1880. Anyway, and so there is my paternal family's plot in Oakland Cemetery in Atlanta, which is the oldest and largest cemetery still erected and standing. And basically, like, there's my dad's family plot, so my paternal family plot, where my grandfather and my grandmother and my great grandfather and his wife, they're all buried there. And Margaret Mitchell's grave is, I shit you not, an 18-step walk away from where they're buried. Now, legitimately, there are also about 16 Confederate generals, which is racist as fuck, and I completely understand that. But I have family buried there, so I have to just sort of ignore that fact.
Well, at least those graves are there as gender-neutral bathrooms if you go.
Yeah, it's gender. Yeah, Confederate general graves are a gender-neutral bathroom. So, but yeah, so when you mentioned Scarlett O'Hara, yeah, Margaret Mitchell's house is still standing in Atlanta. It's about a 15-minute drive from here. You can drive by it.
I thought you were talking about the actress. Was it Vivian?
Vivian Lee?
Yeah.
Was she as bad as Joan Crawford? I'm not sure. Joan Crawford was not the best mom ever, I don't think.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. So that was my close for the microaggressions talk. I'm willing to do the topic for Thursday, but if I do, I'm just going to tell you it's going to be the intimacy talk.
Which one was it?
Intimacy and how we reclaim intimacy post queer life.
Oh.
Reclaim
intimacy.
Yeah. That involves, the guilt of surviving into reclaiming pleasure after trauma. And that's an emotional topic, infinitely more than it's a physical topic. As a matter of fact, the physical aspect of the topic is only like 2 of the points. The rest of the points are all emotional discussion.
I'm fine with that being the topic for Thursday.
But I think Sarah will have input for that topic.
You think so?
Oh yeah, I definitely think so. Just to give everybody that's watching, a preview for next Thursday. So Brandon, do you have anything to close?
No, nothing I can think of.
Sarah?
Brandon was talking about like family members doing the guilt trip thing, and I almost lean towards that being included as being intentional, because their point is to inflict guilt, and so it still feels intentional.
Yeah, in some cases I think it is. And yeah, I mean, when you do something so long, I don't know, sometimes I think my mom, she doesn't even know she's doing it. She's so used to behaving that way, that it's and I think a lot of times it's not intentionally, like her intention isn't to hurt, you know what I mean, but maybe to get you to do something.
Oh yeah, their intention is to manipulate you into doing something, but
Right.
the hurt is the vehicle for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I readily agree with that statement.
My mom had been doing it so regularly there for a while that I actually had to sit her down during a car ride and be like, listen, you do this almost all the time. It does this to me. You really need to stop.
Yeah.
She's getting better though.
That's good.
Glad she's getting better.
Yeah.
Yeah, over time it improved. But here's the thing: there has to be a catalyst for that.
Yeah.
And sometimes whatever catalyst that is difficult. That in and of itself becomes crucial.
Oh yeah, no, I know what my mom's catalyst is. It's the fact that she's lonely. She lives by herself and she does things to try to guilt me into spending more time with her when I have a finite amount of time, a finite amount of mental and emotional bandwidth that I can't spend all of my free time with her.
Right.
So.
Brandon?
Yeah. So there's like one more type of microaggression that I want to talk about.
Please.
Closing point.
I'm all for it.
And that is that even a lot of like well-intentioned people or allies will view my transition as like when Miranda used to be a man versus as a woman now. And it would be nice if allies would understand that like me as a woman is what I've always been, and like the man was a facade. So when people say things like, or they'll ask a question like, blah blah blah. When you used to be a man, like that's I never fit that mold. Like, I played the part, but like that was acting, and so see me as who I am, and not like having to go through this translation process that a lot of times feels very much like, oh, you see trans people as like cross-dresser premium, and that's not who we are. Like, we are who we are. So just want to ask people to be more thoughtful, and whenever we do give feedback for these kinds of microaggressions, really listen to that feedback and like try to take it to heart and try to do better.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's better to just say, I've always been a woman. I just haven't been a decently practicing woman for the first 30 years of my life. But that goes back to the whole societal norm conversation or whatever. And so, but I agree with you. I very much dislike the language of, well, you used to be a guy and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like use the language to talk about us that we use to talk about us, not the language that people who hate us use to talk about us.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I agree with that completely. 100%. So, Thursday, same bat time, same bat channel.
Sounds good.
Probably.
Probably.
Well, there's somebody I'm gonna have on. I'm not sure what time she can do it yet, but I'll try to work around it. We'll see.
You want to bring her in here?
Now she's never been on live before, so I kind of wanted to do it just.
Oh, you're warming somebody up. Is that
Yeah.
somebody you could bring on the show eventually?
I mean, she might want to.
Okay.
I don't know. It's Ginger Cook.
Oh God, yes. Oh my God. That one has been short of Miranda. Miranda is my original, I wanted to have her on one of my live sessions. That was because Miranda and I became friends over TikTok or whatever. But Ginger Cook, that's another one. If we could ever get her on this show, I think it would be a wildly hysterical talk. As a matter of fact, the intimacy talk, she would make that topic amazing.
Oh yeah, she's hilarious. But yeah, I'm looking forward to having.
That would be quite an
live
intro, like your first live being that topic.
Yeah, that would be.
No pressure.
Well, it's not that. Her writing specifically about intimacy issues.
Oh yeah, just
It's
puts
fucking
it out there.
brilliant.
Yeah.
It's completely fucking brilliant. All right, well, I'll Sarah, do you mind disseminating and spreading a Proton link
Not at all.
after the live is over? Thank you. I appreciate your administrative activities.
Of course.
I appreciate your administrative activities. Brandon, I have something to ask you about, but I'll have a conversation with you about it later today.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm going back to work now. Does everybody like my mini bow, by the way? My mini bow from Disneyland.
I
Oh,
like it.
Okay, cool. Anyway, I'm trying to put more artful shit behind me so that, because when you're a liver, that you have to have shit behind you. People think it's cool.
I have to send you one of Kate's original pieces.
I would totally put one of Kate's pieces behind me. Okay.
I have some, but you can't see them because of how my camera's tilted.
Yeah, you need to face your desk towards the door. That's more feng shui.
Oh, you mean like me facing towards the door?
Yeah, that's a feng shui thing.
oh really?
Yeah, then it just encroaches on the size of the space.
Here, before we close, I'm just going to read this out to you. The feng shui of your desk and how it sits. You're going to laugh when I say this, but rotate your desk to face the door. Position yourself with a solid wall behind you and a clear sight line to the entrance of the room. That's the command position. Clear the surface clutter off of your desk, which I had to do this morning. And then your desk should have specific zones of activity. This is what you do for your emotional well-being. And then balance your desk. So, put some technology in one space, put your Zen sand garden, in another place, and then put a plant. Yeah, put a candle and a plant somewhere. I mean, hell, the corner of my desk has Jonathan Swift, because who's more a humanist than anybody other than Voltaire? Well, it's Jonathan Swift. Oh my God, Brandon!
I have a fake plant.
That Brandon, that's completely gorgeous. I love that. Oh my God, I want one now. And then, of course, make sure your desk has natural light attached to it. But that's the best plant holder ever. Holy shit! All right, well, we're 15 minutes over. Thank you, everybody, for coming to Trauma. live. I will remind everybody that Trauma Live happens on Monday and Thursday at a start time that is between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Those are all updated on the site. Here, let me drop the site so that everybody knows where to find all this information. Where I advertise for everybody else, by the way, let me go on ahead and drop that link because we have an entire network of people that include Brandon, who I describe as spicy, gay, and lively. There's the network link to everybody's pages. Thank you all, Miranda, Brandon, Sarah. I love you all. Please have a good day. We'll connect on